Trump's live right now. Should we jump over to speaking of amazingly dumb? All right, let's go. Where is he? He's in Davenport, Iowa. Hold on. Do I have to reload this fucking page?
Secretary of Agriculture. I said, Sonny, let me ask you a question. I want you to figure out over the next couple of days or sooner, how much money
over the next couple of days or sooner.
China to rip off our farmers in this country.
Oh my God! He's just kissing Iowa farmer ass. And I said $28 billion. So I said, give it $28 billion to our farmers. Socialism.
To tell me, he got back to me and he gave me it on a yearly count over a few years, but the total was $28 billion. And I told China, you have to pay it. And you know what? They paid it. They paid.
No, they didn't.
And you all, many of the people in this audience, got a check.
Yeah, government check. It's terrible, and you turned it right in because you're good conservative.
Took it out of the tariffs that I charged China. We had a lot of money left over, I can tell you that. We had hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions left over. We took.
Okay, so Ukraine's not a problem then. I guess I thought that we were taking money from other areas, but we got that left over from the fucking tariffs, and they never stopped, so cool.
A lot of money. We saved the steel industry. We saved a lot of industries. We handed checks to the farmers for $28 billion. Did anybody get a check in this room for the farmers? Because you got to be. Yes, good. Not as many as I would have thought. You all got.
Uh-huh. That's amazing.
Checks to the farmers for $28 billion. Did anybody get a check in this room for the farmers? Because you got to be. Yes, good. Not as many as I would have thought. You all got checks, but maybe you're not in that business, but
you all got checks, you fucking freeloaders, you government saps.
We're all with the farmers, and they got $28 billion. Nobody saw that one coming. That was one that they said, this is incredible. But he also made a deal with China, and the deal with China was a phenomenal one.
Yeah, it was great. Phase 1 of 3 phases, and they did a third of 1 phase. It's phenomenal.
My people wanted $15 billion in agricultural purchase. I said, you have to buy. And otherwise, we're not going to do business with you and other things other than the farms.
Yeah. By the way, he's saying this to China that has to import 80% of their food.
And I said, what's the number? 15 billion. I said, did I hear you correctly? I thought they said 50 billion, right? They said 15 billion. I said, I think I heard 50 billion, asked for 50 billion, and they agreed. And that's why you're still doing well today, Kim. You're doing so well today.
Yeah, you guys aren't broke because of you now. I mean, obviously, you're doing great, not because you're doing great, but because we did great for a deal with the Chinese. So you have the Chinese to thank for what the shit?
Even though they aren't totally living up to it, it's still more money than anybody thought possible. And the reason they're not...
Listen to the silence in that fucking room.
Totally living it up is I have no respect for the Biden administration, but still more money. That's why the farmers are continuing to do well.
By the way, China bought about, it was $30 billion for the phase 1. They bought a little over 10.
But China and the USMCA were just the beginning of our fight for the American farmer. I also...
By the way, 2 Brazilian brothers who own, they're Brazilianaires, who own farmland in the United States got money from that program. They're not even Americans. Like, he gave it to the big ags.
Got Japan to slash or eliminate tariffs on over 90% of U.S. food and agricultural exports. People knew that. What a difference it made. I dealt with the great Prime Minister Abe. He was my friend of Japan. And that one, who unfortunately, as you know, was assassinated by a madman. But what a great man he was, and his people loved him. But he was very fair to us, and we opened it up because we were being treated very unfairly by Japan, as we are by almost everybody, I have to tell you. I can't think of anybody that we made a better deal. It's hard to believe that we survived, but of course, we do have $34 trillion in debt. So I don't know if you call that survival. You know, eventually that comes back to haunt you, right?
Yes, it will, considering 10 of it is you.
But we didn't make any good deals. We had no good deals, so we made a lot of them great, and some of them phenomenal. The European Union agreed to nearly triple its beef imports and opened the markets to American soybeans at a level that nobody thought was going to happen. I also won.
By the way, he's saying this in fucking Iowa because he's like, "But soybeans, sure." So, yeah. Meanwhile, the rest of the time, all of his people use soy boy as a pejorative of choice.
Our farmers gigantic concessions from South Korea, Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, Tunisia, Ecuador, Morocco, and many, many more. I was working very hard on Europe, and that was going to be a deal that was done because they don't treat us very well. Europe, believe it or not, it sounds nice. A lot of us indirectly come from Europe. Sounds very nice, but they treat us very bad on trade.
A lot of us, obviously, the white of us, but sure, yeah. But the important thing is that, the soybeans, the EU managed, oh shit. Trump's soybean deal with the EU is actually pretty insignificant. It's a testament to the power of the tiny soybean, or actually the political power of the farmers that grow them, that the Trump White House has been scrambling this week to appease growers' complaints about the consequences of the president's ill-thought-out trade war. But the president's latest maneuver will do nothing to alleviate the harm caused by his own bellicose trade policies. First, there was an attempt to buy farmer support, with the White House announcing it would spend $12 billion through a New Deal-era crop insurance program to bail out farmers harmed by the tariffs. That's what he was talking about, the 20s splitting it. This is the policy equivalent of lending a garden hose to the fire department after setting your house on fire and then sticking taxpayers with the water bill. Then on Tuesday, Trump was eager to announce the bare bones of a trade deal with the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker that would see the EU importing more soybeans. Soybeans are critical battleground in the trade war because the United States produces so damn many of them. Farmers planted more than 89 million acres of soybeans across the United States in 2018, narrowly edging out the 88 million acres of corn that were planted. According to annual survey by the Department of Agriculture, the United States is the world's largest exporter of soybeans, with nearly half of the U.S. crop exported annually. And China is the largest importer of them. There are a few singular projects that better illustrate the benefits of global trade between the world's two largest economies than the humble soybean. But it was only after this year's soybean crop was already planted that Trump announced his tariffs on steel, aluminum, and Chinese-made goods. China responded to those tariffs by targeting American soybean crop. Since then, the price of soybeans has fallen dramatically, leaving American farmers in the lurch. There you go, U.S. and Brazil FOB soybean flat price spreads from that's the Twitter. That's why, at first blush, yesterday's joint announcement by Trump and Juncker appears to be a positive development. And to be fair, any indication of a ceasefire in the trade war is welcome, but a mere handshake agreement to send more soybeans across the Atlantic won't make up for the reduction in exports caused across the Pacific. For starters, that's because the European Commission doesn't actually have authority over how many soybeans Europe imports. It doesn't procure soybeans for European markets, and it doesn't tell European businesses where to buy their soybeans. Oh, God.
Very badly on trade. And even if you look at the war, if you look at what's going on, we're at about 150 billion, and they're at about 25 billion. I would say that's not right, But somebody's got to tell them. All you have to do is say, listen, you're delinquent. You got to up it. It's not fair to our country. But we had an election that was not a good situation.
It was not good.
Not good at all. You've seen a lot of the reasons for it's a disgrace.
Yes, it's a lot of reasons for it's a disgrace. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you would obviously have an opinion on that. That would probably be because you lost horribly.
More votes than any sitting president.
Yes, and your opponent got more votes by far than any challenger in American history. Also population higher than other times when obviously not a per capita number, but
history by a lot. By millions. We got 75 million votes more.
Yes, he got 75 million more votes than he did the first time.
That's what they report.
Yeah, that's what they report. Everybody's been saying, I don't know why they won't say it, that he beat Biden by 75 million votes. Every child in this country, whether ambulatory or verbal or not, hobbled their way down in their poopy pants down to the ballot box and wanted to vote on. They put on their great bonnet and they said, I'm proud to vote. They went down and voted twice for Trump.
They say the other guy got 80. I don't think so. He did one hell of a job from his basement.
He did.
But
Oh, this is kind of a dud tonight. Maybe it's not mic'd like normal.
That's
but
what it is. It's a very
he's definitely got some fans there, but a big portion of those folks are like, when does DeSantis come on?
sad situation. In total, I successfully negotiated and renegotiated more than 50 agreements to boost farm exports by more than $60 billion, supporting millions and millions of American jobs, and right here in this room and right here in Iowa.
What the fuck are you supposed to do? Attack them? There you go. That's it.
That's what happens when you
That's the best. That's the loudest we're gonna hear from that crowd.
have a president who stands up for America and who puts America first. It can be done. It can be done. I remember France,
I remember somebody's underpants.
who I like a lot.
I do. France is a lovely dude.
But France,
I remember France, who I like a lot. All right.
they were going to put a tax on a lot of our business, almost all businesses.
Yeah, that's the French tax. It was like you can bring the products in, but we get to lick all of them. Just
Stealing in France. And I said, that's okay if they do that. And my people came back to me, smart people. Sir, they're going to put a tax on and they won't negotiate. I said, just go back and tell them they have to. It's not fair.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, weird. You cut me to the quick, monsieur. I was not expecting so sharp and keen a trade representative. The president himself must have picked hashtag the best people."
And you know what I'm talking about. And
No, we don't. Do you?
he's a good man. He's a friend.
What's his name?
Macron.
Okay, I see. Macron.
And I said, listen, here's what we have to do. If you want to do this, because my people came back.
Come back in here. If we want to make a deal, this is what the deal's going to be. Let me come. Sit in here. Sit down. You want a cannoli? Sit down for a second. No, I want to talk to you for a second. We're just going to say something, and it's going to be, I'm going to make a deal you probably will refuse. Doesn't quite have the ring to it.
After like 2 weeks, they couldn't get anything. They got nothing, Kim. You have people that are better than that, I'll bet. But they couldn't get anything, and they were hard working. They worked so hard.
They're the best people. I'm sorry, the best people.
So I called up the top people. I said, listen, here's the story.
Top men.
We're going to put a 100% tax on your wines and your champagnes that come into the United States because you're putting a...
That froze. I didn't stop it, by the way. That's on their end. That's playing.
Close enough. Here's the
Hold on.
story. We're going to put a 100% tax on your wines and your champagnes that come into the United States because you're putting a...
Yeah, that froze where that was on their end. This is nonsense, by the way. Can you imagine just the ultimate trade war between us and the EU if we were like, we're going to put a 100% tariff on French wine to the United States? The fuck out of here. For what? Because you don't like the deal they're willing to go with?
Close enough. We're putting a 100% tariff or tax on every wine.
Honestly, there's no difference between tariff and tax. Just let both words work, even though they don't.
All of your wine, all of your champagne. Oh, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it.
Your fucking snails, your mustache wax, your fucking fromage.
Because at 100%, you're not going to be sending so much to us like you do now. And we'd like to think about this. They called up within an hour, and the whole tax thing was gone. We had no problems. Sort of amazing.
Woo! Yeah. Hold on. Trump, French, tariff. Okay. The president imposing tariffs on French goods in response to... Here we go. Tech tab. This is what he's talking about. Sorry. Get out of here. U.S. will impose tariff on French goods in response to tech tax. The Trump administration said it would impose 25% tariffs on some French goods, but will delay collection of the levies. The Trump administration on Friday said it would impose new tariffs on $1.3 billion worth of French goods, including cosmetics, soap, handbags, in retaliation for French tax that largely hits American technology companies, escalating a trade dispute that threatens to further damage the global economy. Notably absent from the tariff list are the French cheese, sparkling wine, and cookware. Now, there's another one. This is the 100%. Here's where he said the 100%. Yeah, renewed a conflict between the countries to negotiate a temporary truce in August. Here you go. This is what he's talking about. French wine could face 100% tariffs as Trump confronts French over tech taxes. A report by the Office of the United States Trade Representative renewed a conflict between the countries which had negotiated a temporary truce in August. Because that's the art of the deal. It works. The Trump administration said on Monday that a new French tax that hit American technology companies discriminated against the United States, a declaration that could lead to retaliatory tariffs as high as 100% on French wines. It could also jeopardize international efforts to negotiate a truce on the so-called digital taxes. The announcement from the Office of the United States Trade Representative ended a months-long investigation into French tax, which hits companies like Facebook and Google, even though they have little physical presence in France. The investigation concluded that the tax discriminates against U.S. companies, is inconsistent with prevailing principles of international tax policy, and is unusually burdensome for affected U.S. companies. It recommended tariffs as high as 100%. So Trump didn't say this. The United States Trade Representatives recommended this, and Trump was the conveyor of it. Motherfucker. It recommended tariffs as high as 100% on certain French imports valued at $2.4 billion, including cheese, wine, and handbags. Trump, in London on Tuesday for a NATO summit, said the finding was justified. They're starting to tax other people's products, so there we go and tax them. Later in the day, Trump sounded more conciliatory. We have a minor dispute. I think we'll probably be able to work it out. He elaborated later, referencing Macron. The tech companies you're talking about are not my favorite people because they're not exactly for me, but that's okay. They're American companies. We want to tax American. We want to tax American companies. That's important. We want to tax them, not somebody else. He then referenced the 25% tariffs already levied on the European export. We tax wine and other taxes, have other taxes scheduled. We would rather not do that. It will either work out or we'll work out some mutually beneficial tax, and the tax will be substantial. So the Office of the United States Trade Representative, they came up with the number, not Trump. What? Well, I mean, you're shocked that he's lying and taking credit for what other people said and did. By the way, let's look at that back.
Tariff or
Sorry.
Thing came. You have people that are better than that, I'll bet. But they couldn't get anything, and they were hard-working. They worked so hard. So I called up the top people. I said, listen, here's the story. We're going to put a 100% tax on your wines and your champagnes that come into the United States because you're putting a...
This motherfucker, literally, that's him taking credit. He's saying these people worked hard and they couldn't come up with anything. These are the people who came up with the 100% tax on wine, cheese, specifically as a pushback on this kind of stuff. And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. 100%. I'm just going to call it. That's my deal. What a douchebag. Oh, and this is where it froze.
Close enough. We're putting a 100% tariff or tax on every wine, all of your champagne. Oh, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it because at 100%, you're not going to be sending so much to us like you do now. And we'd like to think about this. They called up within an hour, and the whole tax thing was gone. We had no problems. Sort of amazing.
By the way, this went on for months. He elaborated later, referencing pressure, the tech companies, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. He then preferred the 25% tariff. France's economy and finance minister, Bruno Le Maire, Tuesday denounced the tariff threat as unacceptable and said that Europe would come ahead with a strong response without elaborating on possible retaliatory measures. So that must have been in 20 minutes after he talked to him, and then an hour later they were like, sorry, I get a little carried away. I was thinking we were going to have all this wine spoiling, it doesn't keep. And so I was guzzling a bunch of it. It was a mistake. So I called you all purple teeth and fucked up, and I made a mistake. This is not the sort of behavior we expect from the United States toward one of its main allies, France, and toward Europe in general, Mr. Lamy said in an interview with Radio Classique. Trump administration suggests it could open similar investigations into digital taxes proposed by Italy, Australia, and Turkey. I don't even know why you'd bother to do that. You're just going to call them and threaten them with a 100% tax, and then an hour later they'll come and get your ass. And the finding does not immediately impose tariffs on French products such as wine, which is already hit with a 25% tariff in October. A separate dispute, but allows the president to impose them if and when he chooses. It could also upend an effort-led, an escalation of tensions between France and the United States would complicate any resolution to those negotiations. The French government approved the new digital service tax. Mr. Trump's trade representative responded to the French tax by opening the investigation into whether unfairly targeted American companies. In July, the president threatened to impose tariffs on French wine as a response to the new tax, but in August, French and American leaders reached a 90-day agreement. Those talks, which included an array of countries and multinational corporations, are making progress, said Bart LeBlanc, who is friends of Lamy, confidences. If a nightingale could sing like you, he'd sing much better than you do. Now I'm going to Maurice Chevalier. There seems to be room for everybody to agree to this proposal, said Mr. LeBlanc, if everything falls into place. A lot happened in that hour. Some of the administration discussed opening a new investigation into European trade practices under legal authority known as Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 that could allow Mr. Trump to levy more tariffs. People familiar with the discussion said that is the same sort of investigation that the administration conducted in the case of the French digital tax, but there's no concrete sign that the administration has launched that process yet. Whole thing took an hour. He was like a gunslinger. He told them to suck his balls, and they were like, which one should I start on first? Woo! Thank you for bullshitting us. Thank you. There's very few things we like here better than being cornholed by a huckster from out of town. This is Iowa, after all.
But as our Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, said, at the end of the day, farmers are better off thanks to President Trump's policies, initiatives.
Really? The guy you hired to do the job and put in position and was your spokesperson said that? Wow, you really know how to pick them. What'd Tillerson say about you? You know, I retract that. You probably don't want to.
Trade policies and his incredibly strong support. According to the Economic Research Service, farm income.
Not the Economic Research Service. When the ERS speaks, people go, who? I'm sorry?
Is forecasted to be at its highest level. And this didn't just happen by accident. End of quote. He said this didn't happen by accident. He was a real pro, really understood the farming business. He could never believe what we were able to
Yeah, not like you assholes
do.
That didn't get a check. What the fuck? Who let the people who didn't get a check in here? Do I have to buy these votes 1-to-1? Shit.
Just a short period of time. And you're still getting the benefits, but it's slowly drifting away.
Yes. You're doing well, but you're not going to be doing well, and we got to fix that immediately because they already passed a farm bill, and the funding you might be under the impression that the checks you get from the government now are actually the result of a budget passed a year ago when Biden was president, and we can't have that.
It's just slowly drifting away.
It's slowly drifting away. You might even not notice it. You might be too busy eating out and going to movies and doing, you might forget how much you owe me for how hard you work.
Under Joe Biden, it has been a nonstop war on American agriculture. You know that Biden reimposed.
Really? Yes.
The waters of the United States rule. He reimposed it.
Yeah, the old waters of the United States rule. You know the thing that helps you get clean water to irrigate your crops?
One of the first days in office, he's trying to raise taxes on farms. He wants to reinstate the death tax, and fertilizer prices are now up by more than 300% for fertilizer.
It's because it's petroleum-based, and a lot of that shit, that potash, comes from Russia. It's also not going to anymore, thanks to discoveries in Michigan, which has a Democratic governor who has backed up exploration in that area that will completely sever us from the need for Russian potash ever again. But please go on about how you know more about ISIS than the generals.
Net farm income is projected to fall by 16% this year alone.
Uh-huh. Projected by whom?
And on top of it all, and if we didn't do what we did, 16% would be 75%.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's not normal. It's not even real, but it's way worse. It's gonna be. But you're still living off my tit, you freeloaders.
But with the insane Green New Deal, Joe Biden is trying to totally kill Iowa ethanol. By contrast, I fought for Iowa ethanol like no president in history.
I can't do this all night. I got shit to do. Mm-hmm. Oh, fuck you. Hold on. Yeah, he couldn't wait. He's just been terrible about it. Especially April of last year when he waived the ethanol rule. But President Joe Biden is visiting corn-rich Iowa on Tuesday to announce he'll suspend a federal rule preventing the sale of higher ethanol blend gasoline this summer as his administration tries to tamp down prices at the pump that have spiked during Russia's war with Ukraine. This is an ongoing rule, by the way. The Environmental Protection Agency will issue an emergency waiver to allow widespread sale of 15% ethanol blend that is usually prohibited between June 1st and September 15th because of concerns that it adds to smog in high temperatures. Senior Biden administration officials said the move will save drivers an average of 10 cents per gallon at 2,300 gas stations. Members of Congress from both parties, as well as industry groups, have urged Biden to grant the E15 waiver. It's just, I don't know. Maybe my tiny little brain is incapable of understanding the depth of the conspiracy here. That he hurts by helping, and then helps the hurt.
We've had great support. We've had really incredible support in that from
because people voted for him in Iowa,
your state, but. Not everybody supports it outside. Not the easiest sell outside of Iowa, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, I've got to go bullshit them on other stuff.
I issued a rule declaring the E15 would be made available all year round, right? All year round. Nobody said that was going to happen.
Yeah, because there's no reason for it, and it's dumb.
So dramatically increased the number of fueling stations where E15 could be sold across the country, all over the country. And very importantly, I let them use the original pumps and equipment instead of having to buy brand new equipment just because I did it, because it was equal to, in some cases, better than the new stuff. So I said, do it. People came to me. They said, we just can't afford to redo this. And
hold on. I love when he tells these stories. So Trump... E15 rule. Yeah, I wonder why he's bringing it up. A federal appeals court on Friday threw out a Trump-era Environmental Protection Agency rule change that allowed for the sale of 15% ethanol gasoline blend into summer months. The decision deals a significant blow to the ethanol industry and corn farmers, whoops, let me move this down here, who grow the crop from which the fuel additive is made. They had anticipated increased ethanol demand throughout the year, sales of the higher blend. The Iowa governor was mad. Most gasoline sold in the United States is blended with 10% ethanol instead of 15%. Corn farmers and ethanol refiners have pushed for the government to allow the widespread sale of 15%. The Trump administration made the change to fulfill a campaign promise to Midwest farmers. Let's see. Provisions of Clean Air prohibit the sale of certain fuels with a higher volatility from June 1st to September 15th to limit smog. Congress has allowed 10%, and the EPA in its 2019 ruling revised the interpretation of the exemption to the federal law to include the 15% ethanol blend. Ethanol supporters contend that using more of the corn-based renewable fuel is better for the environment and helps meet federal climate change goals. 3 judges on the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, and by the way, Biden waived the 15 for the summer anyways, and basically since it's on right now, it's been a year or two. Reflects compromise, not simply a desire, blah blah blah. I'm looking for the part where it said they didn't want to change their pumps. Marine state barriers that could inhibit market desire, cleaner burning fuel choice, blah blah blah. Major state in response to the ruling. Okay, blah blah blah. Biofuels interested, important driver of economic growth. We know this. Could ask the full DC court to review. Industry is hoping this year's sales will not be curtailed because of the time the court issues made, blah, blah, blah. This is the third summer E15 sales have been allowed, and there were indications sales were increasing. Sales jumped 24%. I don't know where the we got to make new pumps shit came from.
Remember we had
It seems like
that conversation, and we worked it out. So
I don't know who he's pointing to, and my guess is they're like, who?
I'm very honored to have done it. Every promise I made to Iowa as a candidate, I fulfilled as your president. Nobody's ever done this.
Yeah, both of them. Even if they're bad for the country, but I don't care because you guys are first, and if you win the first one, you're good throughout. And now that it's not going to be first, and shit.
I made that promise to defend ethanol, and sometimes we really had to go to the wall on that one, but I did, and I took care of it.
The EPA rule allows for a waiver for the 15% standard just on a presidential signature. That's why it can be turned over by the next president. It's a rule, not a law. Jesus Christ.
I promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem and to get it built, and I did.
And I did, and we used it was built out of corn. At least that's what it looked like.
I got it built for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. You know, when they came to me, sir, would you please sign this, sir? I said, what's that for? That's for the American embassy in Jerusalem, after I announced that we're going to move it. So moving it was one thing, but it would have never gotten built. It would have been...
By the way, Melissa, thank you so much.
25 years. I said, how much is this? $2 billion, sir. I said, wait a minute. We're going to build an embassy, like a one-story building, two-story building. How do you don't build them for $2 billion in Iowa, I don't think, Jeff, do you?
Yeah, no, there are no $2 billion buildings in Iowa at all. Some big silos. Gee, I can't imagine why in a country that is constantly under the threat of war from its neighbors, you would want a reinforced building. At this point, I don't even know why you don't just build a prefab building out of shipping containers. Fuck them. Let the embassy staff just swelter. It's not like, Israel's an important country to the United States or anything.
So
Jesus Christ. This asshole is bragging about building a building without any of the material countermeasures or safety or anti-spying measures that they were asking for. That's it. Basically, he just built a building that anybody wants to listen into the fucking thing, they can hear whatever's going on there. He made it useless to embassy staff, essentially, to do anything that requires any kind of national security.
Why so much? They said, well, sir, by the time we do this and buy the land, why do you have to buy land? Don't we have land there? Well, we do, sir, but nobody's really looked at that. We'll take a look. So I called up some people, and we looked at it very closely, and we happen to have the best piece of land in Jerusalem because we sort of were there early. We're in...
Wait a minute. We built the American embassy on the Temple on the Mount? I just have to say, from a revelation standpoint, that's a mistake.
A lot of places early as a country. We've been there a long time. I said, could we use it? It had a building on. Could we use it? We'll build the embassy there. We just saved $300 million on land. They were trying to rip us on a piece of land that was not even a good location. I know a lot about location because I'm in the real estate business. Location is very important. But they said, yes, sir, but it's got a problem. What? It's got a building on top of it, sir. I said, oh, that's good. Maybe that's good. Maybe we can use the building. Oh, I never thought of that, sir. So I had a study done.
Yeah, that's totally how this went down. He's talking to people who we never thought that we would just use a building we already own there for this. That never even came up.
And the building was very strong.
only a lunatic would suggest.
Was set back. All of the things that you had, they wanted set back for security. It was a very big site, beautiful, beautiful views. Really the best site.
Yeah, it's great views. That's the problem. Into the
And
building.
we already have it. And the building was not even occupied. So I rebuilt the building. I did this as a personal thing. And we were going to spend $2 billion on the whole project. We ended up spending $500,000. Can you believe it?
No, I don't. I think you got $500,000 from the State Department budget, and then the military picked up the back end by just tiptoeing around you, and you didn't give a shit, and you signed off on it. That's what I think. He built a $500,000 building. There's not a $500,000 house in that area.
I went to he was a great ambassador. And David, I said, David, let's see what we can do before he calls me back. So we can do it. This is the first time I ever did this. We can do it, sir, for $297,000. I've never said this before. I said, David, that sounds too cheap, you know. Usually I say, let's see if you can cut it in half. Cut the price in half. But, you know,
But it wasn't my money. It's taxpayer money. Fuck them.
Going off a $2 billion number. So I said, you know, a friend of mine, a very big hedge fund guy, rich guy, every time I walk into his office, he shows me about Jerusalem stone. Oh, this is Jerusalem, opposite the elevator bank, big building. And he goes, look, this is Jerusalem stone. I said, if you tell me that again, I said, what's the big deal? Oh, this is the finest stone, the greatest stone. It comes from Israel and everything else. So when I heard that, I said, 2 years later, I said to my guys, can we build this building in Jerusalem stone? Yes, sir. It's the cheapest stone we can buy. It's right here. You believe it? So the whole building is Jerusalem stone. Nobody can believe it, and it's gorgeous. So we opened it up on time, under budget, actually under budget.
Hold on one second. Let's see, 2018, U.S. Embassy moves to Jerusalem, USA Today, ambitious expansion, history of the youth consulate. Let's see, where is it? New York, Washington Post. The Yellowstone building, was opened in 2010. Okay. Back in, oh shit, hold on. Sign in. Get out of here, you bastards. Come on now. I gotta open the, all right. This is what he's talking. Hold on. Jump it over. Okay. New U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. A stone plaque and $400,000 in renovations for now. This is a good look. Her standing there in front of it, and these folks fired. Yeah, okay. Standing in the yard outside the soon-to-be U.S. Embassy last week, U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman watched as a worker positioned a newly chiseled stone plaque on the wall. Friedman held up his phone and snapped a picture. Donald Trump, President of the United States, moved this here. For all the fanfare surrounding the opening of the new embassy in Jerusalem this Monday, the hanging of the plaque on what is currently a consular services building is one of the few changes that will initially take place. The first phase involves shifting just the ambassador and his core staff to from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, less than half a dozen people, according to U.S. official. That first move, including building modifications, additional security, cost less than $400,000, the U.S. official said. The move is deeply symbolic, upending the decades-old policy of withholding recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital until the final status of the contested city is worked out in a peace agreement between the Israeli and the Palestinians. About 700 guests, mostly Americans, came there as well as bracing for demonstrations, blah, blah, blah. Palestinian officials have called on diplomats. They're mad. Those who attend the ceremony will thus be sending an ominous message, a message that they encourage flagrant violations of international law and inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. The Yellowstone building at 14 David Flusser Street was opened in 2010, a state-of-the-art, environmentally friendly building where service. I wonder who was president in 2010 when a state-of-the-art, environmentally friendly building was built. I can't think. Where services such as passport renewals for U.S. citizens, visa applications by local residents are approved. The site, the newest and most secure U.S. facility in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, one of the U.S. officials said. It's just an old apartment. It's an old building. He tore it down and he rebuilt it for $500,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 or whatever. Now a new asphalt road paid for by a grant from the Israeli Transport Ministry. That's obviously not going on the 500. Snakes up to its side. It's one of the few modifications made during the first phase of the move. Workers are putting in finishing touches. I guess that's all, it's built entirely out of fucking whatever Jerusalem stone. Trump said he brought down the cost of the new embassy from an estimated $1 billion to $250,000, but in late April, Trump said he had budgeted $300 to $400. That cost, however, does not cover the transfer of a dozen additional staff members expected to move to the site over the following year, or the building extension to be constructed for them, nor does the figure account for the final embassy itself. U.S. officials said they could not provide details of later stages because Trump wouldn't let them. We don't have any specific information that something will happen, but the police are ready for any protests, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so there you go. $400,000 for the initial move of the staff. It's the most advanced building that we do own there. It's not a crappy old building that he just put a fucking spit polish on. It's actually the most advanced building that we have, the ability to use. And they just built an easement off the site. Okay. Shall we?
And it's the embassy. And, someday maybe they'll take it down and build some stupid building that costs $2 billion and is unnecessary, which they've done in many other locations.
Also, by the way, sorry. Let's see. U.S. build Israel. Nope. Trying to find something real quick. 1 second. 2010 U.S. Israel objects to U.S. construction demands. Okay, they're talking about, that's mostly the new buildings, bombs, East Jerusalem building plans. Okay, that's it. U.S. 20 U.S. build. How am I gonna searching for this is gonna be because it's in 2010 it's talking about the actual settlements. So USA implications of moving U.S. embassy to Israel. That's house.gov and 9 pages. Here's your partnership. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. There's got to be. I want to find the initial costs of that building. That's what I'm curious about. The moves is deeply symbolic. Tell you half a dozen people. A few changes will have to be made. Let's see. David Freeman for the. What's the address on it? 14 David. What was it? Excuse me 1 second. There it is. 14 David Flusser Street. Copy. Let's go to here. Maybe there's a Wikipedia thing. TextGov info. Jerusalem Postal. United States Embassy. Here's what I'm looking at, by the way. I just went to, now I'm searching through the embassy's info. See, this is going to frequently asked questions. How much did the building cost initially is what I'm looking for. Because I'm going to guess it was very expensive. And then they tacked on the extra $400,000. Open day for some U.S. passport things. CIA, Israel, facts and figures. Embassy photo. Note, the embassy was relocated to Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. Of course, we know that. Yeah, if we can find, I'll keep trying to dig up the cost because this is going to annoy me. I know it's a little thing, but let's see real quick. Block. Cost of initial construction. Yeah, it's going to be hard to come up with. I'm just going to guess the building didn't cost $400,000.
I can tell you. But it was a great thing. So we not only got it in terms of declaring Jerusalem the capital of Israel, which is a big deal to a lot of people.
Especially Christians who hope the end of the world is coming soon.
Big deal. But we got the building built, and it was built very quickly. And I heard all sorts of things are going to happen if you do it. It's going to be terrible. It'll be bloodshed all over the Middle East. Nothing. So it was just a way of stopping something that people didn't want. But when you look at the job we did there, and we got rid of the Iran nuclear deal, now what's happened when you look at what is taking place right now, it's so sad what's going on
So
right
sad.
now. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made the greatest deal ever. They would have never had a nuclear weapon. They would have been actually happy about it. But this
Yeah, they don't want a nuclear weapon. It's a burden.
group came in and allowed them to get rich and allowed them to dictate the terms, and it was really, really a terrible thing. I promise.
Yeah, they still don't have one, by the way. It's been 2 years. They were 6 months away, apparently,
To appoint
when you killed the deal.
true conservative justices to the United States Supreme Court, and I did
Both of them who voted against you in your ridiculous voting nonsense.
that, 3 of them.
I gotta say, maybe they just have mics far away, but this seems pretty pitiful. This is not one of Trump's like giant fucking rallies. Like, and this is Rumble, so if they wanted to, they could pull out to here. Okay, so where are we right now? I'm at 32.5 or whatever. I have no interest in. I can't continue because I got to do shows and I got a thing. We got to make dinner for the kid, and so I'm gonna call it for the night. Maybe we'll redress this on Wednesday, or I'll go through and pull some clips just for fun. But for the record, this is not the rally that people were promised by any stretch of the fucking imagination. Yeah, I don't know if they're not showing the crowd. I don't know if they do at any point. This is him. They just keep it on him like this the whole time. In this so far, anyways, give me 1 second. Let's see. Trump, Davenport, Iowa, which I take very personally in honor of Mr. Davenport. That's why they call me Mr. Davenport. That's the Hill 52 minutes ago. Trump delivers remarks on education. 3:30. Okay, let's see.
Language, they say the wrong thing. Sometimes they're much too tough, but always on the wrong subject. And sometimes they're weak as hell. Like,
hold on. This is so weird.
when Biden said initially on Afghanistan, well, he could go in and maybe take over some of the country. That was not a good signal. That was not a good signal.
Hi, stupid. By the way, for all the, Ron Filipowski, love you, brother. Remember we were talking about Biden's gaffes being worrisome? Trump just mixed up Ukraine and Afghanistan again.
For some of the country. That was not a good signal.
Hold on.
And sometimes they're weak as hell. Like when Biden said initially on Afghanistan, well, he could go in and maybe take over some of the country. That was not a good signal. That was not a good signal. People said, did he really say that?
No, he didn't really say that, because you mean Ukraine, and he didn't say that either.
But we have inflation.
Somebody's yelling Ukraine at him.
These are all self-inflicted wounds, much worse than wounds. We have inflation that's rampant. If you look at what inflation over 200 years, what it's done to countries that had to suffer through it destroys the countries. It's like cancer.
Yeah, it is. Inflation is like a cancer. A managed cancer that your financial system needs to survive. You need 2% of cancer all the time.
Destroys the countries. We have now banks that are closing. Two big banks yesterday closed. That's a bad sign.
I got to get out of here. This is crazy. Hold on. Oops. Is it true that 15 banks failed during Trump's presidency? My, oh my. Why, yes, it is. Those 15 banks failed between the time Trump was inaugurated and when he left office. All of them were smaller than the banks that failed in March 2023, attributing bank. Well, that's because business wasn't as good either, especially for all the crypto crowd. And it won't be again. Attributing bank failure solely to whichever political party is in power amidst nuances concerning why the banks failed in the first place and what lessons can be learned to prevent other banks from failing in the future. Social media spread the claim that 15 banks in the U.S. have shut down under Trump. We found the claim to be true. Subject emerged. Let's see. In Silicon Valley, with 209 billion in assets when it closed, it is the second largest bank failure after behind Washington Mutual's failure. By the way, it's the biggest failure because that's the size of the banks that the government was like, fuck them. Just so you know. There were way bigger banks that were distressed in 2008, but they were too big to fail. Washington Mutual was the biggest bank that was not too big to fail. Get me? Okay. So also prompted regulators to close Signature Bank, which is the third largest bank failure in history. The bank had 110 billion in assets when it closed. Another bank, Silvergate Capital, announced its intent to wind down operations and liquidate its assets on March 8th. Where the bank was facing multiple lawsuits that accused the bank of not having adequate protections to detect money. The bank had 11 billion in assets at the end of 2022. Here we go. Banks did fail under Trump. Here's the list of the bank failures. That's the FDIC. Jake Sherman provided the list. There you go. Here's the list of the banks that closed and their dates of closure. Seaway, I wouldn't blame Trump because he was just there. March 3rd, possibly. I don't know. First NBC Bank, that was clearly an attack. He put, MSNBC has a bank, shut it down. Shut it down. IRS attack. Guarantee Bank, which is spelled weird, so it should shut it down. Fayette County Bank, oh dear God. Which one? The one in Kentucky or the one in Illinois or the one in Indiana or the one in Ohio or the one, there's a lot of Fayette counties. Farmers and Merchants, State Bank of Argonia, Enloe, Louisa Community Bank, Resolute Bank, City National Bank of New Jersey. That's a big one. Just the Jersey branch, though. Manufacturers call the bank to fail, undercapitalization. We all know this. Anyways.
That could be the beginning. We have an economy that's in shambles.
It totally is. You don't feel it yet because it's slowly winding into shambles. You think you're doing good and you think you were obviously able to come here. I mean, you can't beat the ticket price, am I right?
You know, last year, you don't realize this, last year we had the worst stock market since 1929. Did you know that?
Well, percentage-wise, but then it went back up, so nobody gave a shit.
We had the worst stock markets, you know.
Yes. Yeah. We had the worst stock market since 1929, which means we haven't really had a bad stock market since 1929.
You don't think of it
by those standards.
As you continue to do, it's tighter, it's tougher, you have inflation, your gasoline costs you 4 or 5 times as much in some cases. But we had the worst stock market since 1929. It actually goes back longer than that. It goes back to, I think, 1887. But I said, let's use 1929 because people understand. That was called the Great Depression.
See, I was wondering why he was using that particular date. I know a lot of you were, because I don't know why you wouldn't go back to the 1800s to talk about the stock market, because there's so many parallels to that, the stocks sold in the 1800s and the NASDAQ.
But we had the worst stock market. People have their 401ks. Does anybody have a 401k? Raise your hand if you're happy with it, because not too many people. Anybody happy with the results? Because I'll tell you what, they were happy when I was running this country. They were making a fortune with a 401k.
Yeah, you were making a fortune with your 401k. Explain to everyone how you make a fortune on your 401k when you're in your 50s, let's say. And how that fortune can go away and then come back and then go away and then come back and then be big and then be very big and then go to back to where it was. And then eventually, and then no.
I had a police officer in New York, the great...
Yeah, tough guy. He was crying when he said this. And he said, "Sir, I have a 402k.
People. He came up to me and said, "Sir, I want to thank you. My wife always said I'm a incompetent, horrible investor. We have a 401k. And All my life I was suffering with her, sir. You don't know what you're doing. You did. Sir, she gave me the biggest kiss last night. I was up 59% last year. This is a few years ago. And my wife loves me so much. She thinks I'm the greatest investor ever now, sir. And I just want to thank this.
What? You don't have control over what goes into your 401k day to day?
Big handsome cop from New York.
Yes. Did you kiss him too? Was it a threesome? I'm getting really creeped out.
And I sort of just remembered it, but many people said that.
I sort of just remembered it. I mean, I'm sure it's exactly as he tells
They were
it.
up 50, 60, 70, 80%. And now you're going down at numbers that nobody would have thought. Yeah, it was the worst stock market since 1929. Think of
Yeah, but that's because in sheer numbers, because the 3,000 points back then was the whole fucking shebang.
that, what that is, the Great Depression. We have a country that's a mess, but more importantly, it's a world that's in serious trouble because we have such an impact on the world. We lead the world.
Which is why I'm running for president of Earth. And don't get creeped out because the Bible thinks says that makes me the Antichrist. Don't just read one of the Corinthians, not
World,
both.
or we should, but we're not leading it anymore. When you see that,
Yeah, we kind of are
and
actually.
you see Saudi Arabia made a deal with Iran, and they made it through China, not through the United States. Who would
No, they didn't. They made it through Iraq. China took credit for it. And good luck, by the way. We'll be watching that one. Knock yourself the fuck out. And by the way, there's a reason, why we can't broker a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia ourselves, and why the UN will do it or another country will do it inevitably when it happens, is because we would have demands on how women are treated or political prisoners or that kind of shit for us to even be involved. China doesn't give a fuck.
have thought of that one? Who would have thought Saudi Arabia? I said this 2 years ago. I said, if they keep going like this, Saudi Arabia is going to get together with Iran through China.
Yeah, that's what you said. I totally remember when he said that. You guys remember when he said that?
And China's going to control that whole situation. It should have been done through us. We could have had that done so easily.
Yeah, if we just did those pesky women's rights.
These things are unprecedented.
Oh, by the way, sorry. Yes, same. Hold on. Real deal. This is in New York. Oh, that's the 2019. Yeah, here we go. Hold on one second. There we go.
Things are happening that are unprecedented. The Biden administration has driven Russia right into the arms of China, something that is unacceptable. When you're a child studying history,
Yes, when you're a child studying history, what do they tell
one
you?
thing you learn is you never
The one thing.
want Russia and China to get together.
That's right. Yeah. That's like Roseanne and Tucker. You just don't. It's very dangerous. Why?
And form an alliance. Biden has done that. They have a big, beautiful alliance, right?
They do. It's a big, beautiful alliance. They love each other. It's going to go so well. Everything. It's just, I'm jealous, really.
Now. And they've driven Russia right into the arms of China.
Or vice versa. I forget whose arms wide open.
Like taking candy from a baby. It was for China. It was very easy. We also have
It really is. So Russia's desperate, is what you're saying.
the Iran problem, and
Or stupid, or innocent, or naive.
I would have had that done very quickly because they were in bad shape financially. Now they're rich again. I told China, if you want to buy oil from them, that's fine, but you're not going to do any more business with the United States.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
And they said, we will not buy oil from them. They didn't. And we were in a position where we could have made a great deal, and made a deal for them too. Made a deal for everybody to keep the world safe.
I may be America first, but I'm Iran second, and I don't get credit.
But when I left, all of a sudden, China went back and started paying a fortune for the oil, and they're rich now. Iran is very rich now, and it's a much different situation than it was.
All right, this is gonna keep me here all night, isn't it? Hold on. Whoops, hold on. Trying to. Why can't I? Oh, my browser is stuck below. Like it's. Why is it not full page? Grumble. All right, hold on. I'm gonna end up being here all night. I'm gonna end up chasing articles, and I'm not gonna find them, and it's gonna take me a whole night. There we go. So I'm going to maybe pick some of this up on Wednesday if I feel like it or there's a part to be addressed. Otherwise, I will be here all night, and I have to go cook dinner, and this is ridiculous. So, and it's the same stuff, and it's the same bullshit, and it's the same lies over and over and over again. Iran currently, by the way, their deal with Saudi Arabia boosted their currency, the rial, 10%. It rose. The real has risen 25% since February when it dropped to a historic low of 600,000 to the US dollar. It is now 450,000 reals to the US dollar, which sounds amazing. You can get 450,000 Iranian reals for $1. So after this deal, after their currency went down 60%, it went up 25% of the 60% or the 40% that was left over. I know. It's a great deal. This is a man who clearly wrote Art of the Deal. Ugh, I will be here all night with every fucking lie. Anyways, love you guys. I will see you on Wednesday. No show tomorrow because I have the jam and I've got sound check right in the middle of when I would have the show. So forgive me for not having a show tomorrow. You can help me out though when I'm not on the air instead of me having to be a pay for play kind of a person. If you subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, or pop in there with a super chat or something like that, or a super thanks if you're watching this later, I suppose. Or just become a patron. Patreon.com/AlSparks. Okay, love you guys. See you on Wednesday.